At the beginning of the week, it seemed impossible that this could happen. The champion had entered, the one they'd been waiting for. But the tide has turned, and now Jesus has been betrayed and arrested. What they thought would be the greatest victory now appears to be heading for a defeat. The man they thought was the Messiah has been arrested, is being handed over, probably to be crucified. What happens now? Now do they just move on? Move on and wait for the real Messiah? Or is God's plan still working? Has the mission of Jesus failed? Yesterday we saw how he was betrayed, how he was arrested, and now we come to the events on that Good Friday, facing trial before Pilate, and ultimately being crucified. Many would be watching on, the disciples themselves having deserted and fled, and of course Peter, having said he would never disown Jesus, soon to be faced with that exact challenge. The story of the greatest victory seems to have taken an unusual path and an unusual road. What happened on that Good Friday?
The soldiers took Jesus to the leaders of the city,
and they put him on trial.
They tried to find something that he had done wrong.
But they could find nothing.
Pilate could find nothing against him.
so they turned to the crowd of people and asked,
"What do you want us to do with this man?"
And the people shouted,
"Crucify him."
Pilate gave the crowd a choice. Even if who's there.
The priest stirred up the crowd.
And the people shouted,
Free Barabbas!
Pilate feared there may be a riot.
So he handed Jesus over to be crucified.
While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by.
When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him.
You also were with that Nazarene, Jesus.
But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about," he said, and went out into the entryway.
When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fellow is one of them." Again, he denied it.
And after a little while, those standing near said to Peter, "Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean."
He began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about."
Immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him.
"Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times.
And he broke down and wept.
Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha.
They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him.
And then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head.
They put a staff in his right hand.
Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said.
After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him.
They offered Jesus wine to drink, mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it.
When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots.
and sitting down they kept watch over him there.
Above his head they placed the written charge against him. This is Jesus, the King of Jews.
2 rebels were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left.
One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us.
The other criminal rebuked him. Don't fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence.
We have punished justly for we are getting what our deeds deserve. For this man has done nothing wrong.
Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise.
From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land.
About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?
And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit.
At the moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom.
And when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, surely this man was the Son of God.
As evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus.
Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him.
Joseph took the body, wrapped it in clean linen cloth,
and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock.
Within the space of a few days, this, what seemed like the entry of the champion, had seemingly turned into defeat. Jesus had been placed in a tomb and a stone put at the entrance, a massive heavy stone. But this was no defeat. This was continuing the story of the greatest victory. The greatest victory of all. It seems as if Jesus' mission had failed, but God had a perfect plan. It's God's great love for us that saw Jesus come into this world and die on the cross so that we can be forgiven. Those things in our lives that we've done wrong, this word that the Bible calls sin, could all be forgiven. Jesus said, "It is finished." But what appeared to be a defeat was not the end. On that day, the day that we now call Good Friday, Jesus had died on the cross. But the journey, this story of the greatest victory, was not yet done. Sunday was still awaiting.